Brother Plumtree, knowledge is power. Guard it well.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another video from Frog Lane Studio. So after putting this guy up on social media, I had loads of people asking about how I went about doing the stencils, the army badges you can see on his shoulder pads and pauldrons. So I promised everybody I would give you a free video tutorial on how I went about doing it. And this is that, so sit back, relax, enjoy, and hopefully you can apply this to whatever chapter you want to do for your McFarlane Marine. First thing I would say is kind of a public service announcement. If you have got any of the Forge World transfers for the vehicles, those work extremely well for this. If you're not lucky enough to have those, or Forge World doesn't produce the transfers for your army, then you're going to need to follow these steps. First step, obviously when you don't have what you need, is to head over to Google. I found the White Scars chapter badge dead easy, and also an Ultramarines troop badge as well. So I went ahead, I grabbed that off the internet. Using a bit of photo editing software, I was able to get that in different sizes, print it off, and then match it up with the shoulder pad to make sure that I got the right size and the right scale for that Space Marine. It's on to making the stencil then. So our first thing we're going to need to do, masking tape is our key ingredient here. Tape it down to the piece of paper that you're going to do, and then you're going to want to put another piece of masking tape over the top of that. The reason why we're doing this is the initial masking tape is going to lose its traction, and this second piece of masking tape is what we're going to use in order to create the stencil that we're going to be putting on the Space Marine. So we want as much tack as possible on that masking tape when we're stenciling it. From here, all we're going to do is just trace around the outside of that printed off logo, paying close attention to try and scribe this as accurately as possible. This is a one-shot deal, so you want to make sure that you can get this in the center as accurately as possible. It's worth taking your time with this. Once you've got it set up, get your thumb and you're going to work from inside of it out. We're not looking at getting any creases because this is a curved object. We're not looking at getting any creases on the bit where we've got the stencil, otherwise the paint's going to bleed through. So you really want to take your time with this. If you do see any creases starting to form, go back in with the Stanley blade like this and just ever so slightly tear it. You can then get a more accurate curve on there. Once that's done, give it a good old press round and we're ready for the next step. So with the scalpel blade, you're going to press very gently onto the masking tape. You don't need that much pressure to go through the masking tape and cut it. Once you've gone all the way around, then it's a case of very carefully picking off the parts where you're wanting the paint to be. So we're going to go through and very, very gently just remove the masking tape from the area that we then want to paint on. And after we've done this step, your stencil's going to be completed. If you are enjoying the video or you've learned something, please consider giving it a like and a subscribe. I'm going to be producing many more tutorial videos on hacks, hints, tips and tricks to ease your hobby woes. It's not over yet then. Once we've got this stencil done and dusted, the next step is onto the painting. Now what you're going to want to do is ensure that all around the edge of that masking tape it is perfectly secured to the model, otherwise you're going to have the paint bleed through and you're going to end up with paint on the model where you don't want it to be. You just want this chapter badge just to have the paint on there. So when it comes to the paint itself, what I like to use is Airbrush Thinner. So the Airbrush Thinner is something that is going to be able to get that paint to a really nice thin consistency. You're going to want to be doing 2-3 coats of this thinner as opposed to one thick coat. Once you've got that base coat fully down and you're ready to go, it's on to the most satisfying part, the big reveal. So what I'm doing here is getting my scalpel blade and I'm just excising that outer part of the stencil into manageable chunks to remove the masking tape. You still want to be really careful with this to avoid either pinging the paint off with the edge of the scalpel blade, or when you're lifting up the masking tape, removing the paint that's adhered to it, the red in this case. So you just want to be really careful, take your time, follow the lines that are on there and just go steady. Slow is steady, steady is fast, or whatever they say. But there's no real big secret to this. It is just being very careful, very slow, very steady, light touches with the scalpel blade. You don't want to go through the paint job that you've done, so it's just about taking your time. My biggest piece of advice if you're hand brushing these models is to make sure that you're using thinner or a similar medium. For me personally, I use Airbrush Thinner on these models because it thins the paint to a point where the brush strokes aren't noticeable, and that's going to be your biggest bugbear on this. Is either going to be your brush strokes that are noticeable, or alternatively the tiny fragments of dried paint that appear when you're brush stroking. You guys know what I mean, that chalky effect. So please use some sort of thinner when you're doing this to get the best results on these large pieces for the McFarlane. So there we have it then, guys. That is how I achieved these army badges on here. Guys, if you've enjoyed the video, please like it, subscribe. I will be having much more content out there. I'm trying to grow the content and the channel at the moment. Thank you so much to all of my Patreons and to you guys as well for watching. I literally couldn't do this without you. Take care. I'll see you in the next video, and may your pots of paint never run out.